So are you still at the hub?
I am, yeah.
So is the hub open still?
Open all week long.
I didn't know that they were doing that.
Yeah, we decided on Sunday. I guess I don't know how you would have made it on our list. Oh yeah, it was only like people who signed up to volunteer online who are on our text list or whatever. But yeah, it's picking up. I mean, it's picking up. People coming in to like shop, which I think you saw on Sunday.
Yeah, I saw that on Sunday.
And it's like nonstop families coming through the door.
Okay, I didn't know that. I'll set aside some time to play.
Any period of time helps. Yeah, it's a little out of control there.
We'll be over there at noon today because we're with the Club Wealth people.
Oh yes, that's right. Do you know how many people are coming with them?
I have no idea.
I have no idea either. I have plenty for them to do.
I think that they're unloading their stuff and then going
Some
out.
of them are staying.
Some of them are staying.
Yeah, some of them are staying.
Well, I have to tell you, my mucking and packing days.
Yeah.
I think I've had enough mucking and packing, and my laundry days are definitely have to come to an end because I don't do my own laundry. You have to understand this. I don't. And,
Oh man.
Anyway. Where are you going to be?
I don't know.
Thing that I sent to Bill about the agent recognition, I'm going to do that at the end.
Okay.
Marianne, did Wanda want to start it off? She does.
Somebody took my longer cord. Really needed that.
Can we take one from one of these computers back here?
They're all very short. They're all the same length, but it's okay. We can make do with this.
Looks like a lot of cord laying right there. That blue one doesn't have blue one.
It's okay. We'll do with this.
My guy long. My guy, 20 years. We've been dating longer than you guys. I'm going to get going for a little bit. I'm going to turn it over to you because I'm going to leave and longer can handle anything. Do what? Yesterday, you'll look on me going on a Mercedes. That'll be the November edition. One of these nights. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you all for being here. I'm going to go first, and then we have the honor of having him here. He's going to do the whole presentation on flood insurance, and he can talk to you about FEMA more than I can. Hopefully, he won't contradict anything I ever said to you. And they're getting 1 hour of MCE credit.
Oh yeah, I need to make you sign in.
Yeah, you're going to need to sign in if you want credit for that. I have been on the news lately. I'm supposed to know something about real estate. I don't know if you taught me on the news the other day. Hopefully, many of you were at my presentation. For those of you that weren't, might be worthwhile at least watching what I had to say. You know, and there's other people talking about it. It's going to be in the news. Every news agency around the country is going to want to answer that question. What's the impact of Harvey like Houston real estate, and it's a big city, so there's a lot of impact. I think that the message you need to send to a seller or a buyer is don't panic and don't overreact. I mean, because today's impact is going to be different from tomorrow's impact. Of course, there's going to be delays, and of course, it's going to take longer, and of course, we're going to reinspect some things, and of course, some things are going to fall out, and of course, some houses are going to be harder to sell. But it doesn't mean that there's not a flip side of that. That there's plenty of people that want to buy a house, and if they have the ability to buy a house, there's plenty of places that are going to buy a house. We're going to have closings, and it's just there's going to be two sides of it. The frantic, pace of the rental housing market's just going to be unreal. I'm telling you, the New York Times had 3 pages today about the people in the hotels that have to have some place to go in about 21 days. Yes.
Well, I mean, the rumor was there's no hotels in Houston.
There are no
Or
hotels.
San Antonio. Or Corpus
Today you would
Christi.
get a voucher for Dallas.
That's right.
Today you would get vouchers for Dallas. You can get vouchers. But some of those people are not going to stay 30 days. They're going to get tired of the hotel and they're going to do something else. They'll free up a certain amount of hotels. But we're rowdy people. We shipped 300 people from Dallas yesterday down to the city. We're moving people from Austin. This is the city moving people back in the buses. But I'm not going to worry about. I am going to worry about 300 and 500 people. We're still talking about hundreds of thousands of houses that are impacted, not 300 here or there. But yeah, specific questions. I think Rhonda's pretty well in tuned, and Aaron's pretty well in tuned, and Brandon is back or whatever. If your house was high and dry, it was going to be slow over Labor Day, and it was going to be slow the week after Labor Day, and it's been slow the week after Labor Day for 20 years. I've been doing this. This is one of my slowest weekends. Last weekend, it's just back to school. The realtors, a mother, the world just wants to get situated again. The hurricane continued that philosophy, but I am going to add a number of houses onto the market tomorrow and Thursday, just as I had planned before the hurricane. Those that were in the Heights that didn't sell in the summer after 60, 90, 120 days, I think are going to sell just fine this fall. So the issue is probably my house flooded. What am I going to do? And I'm just telling you, there is going to be a massive push to buy out these houses. Whether there's enough money to do it or not, I don't know. But there will be a push to do so. So these people that are in a hurry, if they have flooded historically, the White Oak Congo, let's just take those for an example. It makes literally no sense to rebuild those suckers that flooded in Allison, in a heavy storm this summer, in Tax Day, in Memorial Day, and Labor Day. That water is the solution to their problem will not be fixed this year or next year or the next year. If we spent $1 trillion, it isn't going to be fixed that quickly. So there's no need to rebuild those entry-level deals, enlarge the green space over there, buy out the people. You might have parking underneath some units up above on the second floor or something, but you're not going to get a permit to be able to rebuild those things. And the city, the federal, or the county is going to do something. How soon they do it, I don't know. They're still in crisis mode over there, just operating the city. I don't want to keep too long because you already have a long project, but I want you to be aware the mayor did announce his tax increase. Every one of your clients is going to ask about this tax increase. So we'll just jump right on up there. This is a provision in the ordinance when the revenue cap was put in. If there's a state of emergency, the city has a mechanism whereby you can go back and revert back the revenue cap to what it was. We're talking about putting back the city tax rate the same rate that it was in 2009. So they're not really raising taxes. They've artificially been lowering the tax rates. The rate would jump back up to the 2009 provision, and it would just be for 1 year. It's an emergent. It's like a rainy day fund. It does require the action of city council, so it will be political. It will be very political. It will be Democrat versus Republican. I assure you it will probably pass. There'll be plenty of people that are upset about it. Plenty of my clients are upset about it because there is a notion of double taxation. It's based on January 1, which your value of your house was higher if you just got flooded than it is today. So now the guy flooded is going to pay higher taxes on value higher than what his house is. And the answer to that's true. Yes, for those people that are impacted, they're going to pay higher that year because their value won't be reassessed until January 1 of 2018. The vote will be in October. It'll be controversial. It'll go into play for 2018. A $220,000 house, it's about a $112 increase. So if you have $1 million house, it's a $450 increase 1 year on your city tax rate.
So it's just city and it's just for 1 year.
That's correct.
Very small amount to help the city.
Doesn't mean that the county won't do something similar, but yes, that's right. What we're talking about is the city.
Does it affect the seniors?
If their taxes are frozen and if their taxes are frozen, no. But if just their value is frozen, then yes, their rate would increase if just their value is frozen. So it could. We've raised the exemptions for seniors pretty significantly. But yeah, if you're a senior living in $1 million house, it impacts you. If you were living in a $129,000 house and it was frozen at that value, it's not going to impact you. It will come out next year. You know, if it's going to be for next year, leave a rate that would be adjusted for next year's taxes.
I've had a couple of people express just concern about whether or not, how can they be sure it'd be limited to just a year?
It's constitutional. It's in the Texas Constitution. Doesn't mean that the mayor doesn't want to put the revenue cap up for repeal, but whether that passes or not, it's the big city. I didn't know if it's going to pass or not. I mean, and so the Jan Spins of the world, my clients say, we're the beneficiary of more people, so he has more money. And I want you to think of it this way. If you're a teacher and you get allocated $2,400 per student, and you have 20 students, you get $2,400 per student. But it costs you $2,800 to really take care of that student. And I'm going to give you 30 students versus 20 students. Doesn't mean that it solved your problem that you've had more people. We don't have enough revenue because the tax rate is artificially kept low to provide the services that people want. And it's the only national city that has these revenue caps. No one else in the state has a revenue cap. We do have a balanced budget. We have a surplus that we keep every year that they're having. I mean, it's the classic argument. If people want better roads, they have to pay for the better roads. Or what do you want to cut? I mean, and as we've discussed before in these meetings, I mean, about 67% of it's personnel to begin with. So when you start cutting the library budget and the swim budget of the $2 billion budget, it isn't $10 million to begin with. We're talking about fractions of pennies for these sort of things. The only thing you can really cut is a policeman or a fireman or a sanitation worker for it to make any difference. And I would venture to say most people want more policemen and more firemen and more sanitation workers, not less.
And that's the discussion at council every week that they talk about it. Are we going to get more cops or aren't we?
We're already 2,000 shy policemen, so I mean, we're never going to solve the crime problem without removing revenue.
So city council votes on it, it's not a vote for the
That's
people.
right. That's correct. For this, in the emergency, that's correct. For the 1 year emergency action, it's just a vote of council.
Doesn't mean you can't approach your council
Absolutely.
person and express your desire.
Absolutely. Okay, so you know enough about that to at least have a conversation about the impact of the city taxes and the city line. Doesn't. If you're in Bel Air, we're not talking about that. If you're in the city of Westview, don't talk about that. If you're in Bunker Hills, that's not, we're talking about the city of Houston taxes. Those sort of things. Okay, what else? What sort of little question have you got about going on?
Oh, yeah,
Yes.
you sent an email about, or someone sent an email about how does the hurricane affect real estate prices in the Heights?
It helps the Heights. I mean, let's be clear, it helps the Heights just fine.
And other neighborhoods like the Heights, like a good portion of Oak Forest
Yeah.
and.
The areas that didn't flood are going
Does he
to
express
are
Eastwood?
more valuable today than they were less valuable. I didn't quote a statistic in my meeting, but I mean, that guy came out with it and says theoretically the value, immediately, this is just immediately, the value of your property if it flooded is reduced by 22%. That's a study by Texas A&M. I don't know if it's accurate or not. I'm telling you, don't sell in a panic anyway, so don't take your losses, today. Hold on to your damn property one more month and see what happens over the year. Don't let the vultures get to you. But there is a study that says that, and it's probably about accurate. If you sold today, the value of your property is probably 22% less than it was the day before a hurricane.
Did he express the opposite?
Yeah.
Would I say that there are people out?
Did he express the opposite?
There are other people, no, he did not say that in that statement because they use actual data to get to that number. There are plenty of people that think the value of properties that didn't flood did go up by 20%. I think that's a pretty high deal. I think we were saturated in a fair number of areas. And I still think the 20-year-old house that has brown shag carpet didn't go up that much in value. It's the brand new high houses in Bel Air, they're going to be just fine if they're high, and the old ones are going to be in trouble. The high ones in Ireland just went up in value also, right? If they were 6 feet up off the ground and they didn't flood, they're going to do just fine because there's plenty of people that want to live in Ireland. You know, it just depends if it flooded or not. If it flooded, you're in trouble. And like I say, I mean, so let's be clear. We are not going to disperse any money in this company to a house that closes from this day forward that doesn't have a seller's disclosure dated after the hurricane, okay? We're going to disclose around here. If you're selling a house that's closing tomorrow and you haven't updated the seller's disclosure after, it could say the exact same thing. I don't care. I don't want the date on it to be after August 31st, whatever day that hurricane was. I have no concept of time anymore. We need these sellers to, and when in doubt, because there's going to be billion-dollar class action lawsuits against people who fail to disclose. And there's going to be plenty of vulturous lawyers out looking for sellers, and they're going to find out about it 2 years later. You know, when something happens and the windowsill starts rotting, they're going to assume that was from hurricane, right? They're going to assume that you knew about it and painted it right quick. The sellers. I mean, there's going to be leeriness of sellers. So buyers are going to sue all kinds of people. Sellers a year or two later, realtors a year or two later, inspectors a year or two later. The same thing happened after Ike. I mean, people, that's what you do. You know, so you must update your seller's disclosure. And like the advice I said, I think if I was selling a house, and I would probably have a pre-inspection for moisture detection to make sure that you were being proactive about whether or not you, to your knowledge, did you have anything? If you don't have any knowledge, that was the proof you didn't have any knowledge. You had an inspection.
I'm confused with this moisture inspection. Isn't it too late?
It is probably too late, but you might be surprised what they find, because they're going to go over there and they're going to look at this balcony door and they're going to look right here. They're going to do their little infrared and see if there's an anomaly, but they're going to look for signs of paint bubbling. That, yeah, the sign of the penetration might be gone, but there's other signs other than wet insulation. But you'd be surprised the number of people that just hang over something and the insulation does stay wet for 6 or 8 months and they can't fix that up.
If you go onto the Houston Association of Real Estate Inspectors site, HARDI.com, and look under the category of specialists, you will find their list of inspectors who do thermal imaging.
But it's, I mean, I have dozens and dozens of our ex-clients and friends who had balcony issues as a result of the deal. It wasn't rising water, it's water from the balcony on the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th floors over here. You know, and a lot of those signs don't even kick in until 3 weeks later. So I think that would be, I think it's good advice to have some type of inspection to prove that you did the same thing. Even if you're, and like I say, every house that had any water better go get permit, and they better go get an electrical inspection from the city so they can rely and say, look, I plugged it all in, it works fine, but I did my due diligence, I got a permit, I had the city come out, they re-inspected it, they told me it was fine, I got a final. That's due diligence. You've disclosed, you've been proactive about it.
It's gonna make you look better.
How many of y'all are gonna buy a used car today? Y'all know they flooded, right? If they're on the market right quick on the lot's gonna be full. I think it's just going to be easier for you to buy a brand new car than it is to buy one. If it's a year old and it's on the used car lot, come on, it flooded.
They have clients who didn't have any damage or thought they didn't, and they were having work done on the stairs, and their stucco had so much damage. It's like 40 grand in repairs, so we're waiting to
get the insurance money. This is when the money is available. Be
Yeah.
proactive, I would think about it, and disclose.
Yeah, the moisture inspection, just, people are gonna ask, well, how much is that?
About $550. The average cost about $550 for the type of house.
Some are gonna be more, some are gonna be less.
Yeah. Not holding your hands in the fire.
Smaller, it's gonna be cheaper, bigger, it's gonna be more, but the average price that I'm determining is about $550. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so I have a client and they did get penetration on the window. And when we updated it, we just updated it like on page 3 where they wrote, okay, and they just initialed it. But my question is.
And
is
they
like, and data, yeah. So my question is though, is like trying to get someone to come out to look at this little windowsill right now, and inspections are Friday, and so they disclosed it, we're waiting for
I think so.
inspections.
You're just gonna rely on the buyer's inspection. It's probably fine. In your game, if you're probably too far on, just let the buyer's inspection do it. I'm just saying, before you even put them back on the market or something, I might do that. I think everyone should probably go, every homeowner should probably go have it inspected to see what damage they have, because they could turn it into their homeowner's insurance or their FEMA. They didn't know. Yes. Jim.
I have an older lady friend who got a lot of damage. Her house has already been, remediated right now as far as sheetrock put out and everything. She doesn't think she wants to go through the renovations, and
Fine.
would you recommend just selling and
Yeah,
signing over her?
Absolutely. I mean, yes, you're gonna get the low ball offers to
And she
begin
knows
with.
that.
Yeah, I think there's gonna be plenty of houses sold that have 4 feet down, just exposed, no sheetrock or insulation. There's gonna be plenty of those people that aren't gonna wanna mess with it. And the vultures, I'm being reported, the Bradley Smiths of the world are out buying hundreds of those houses right now. They'll buy them, 80 cents on the dollar, fix them up, rent them for a year, and sell them a year later to somebody else. Whether you can sell a flooded out house a year later, I don't know. We're not as realtors, so it doesn't matter to me. But yeah, plenty of people are buying those houses.
Yeah, okay.
I think they need to be nervous about whether, if they flooded before this,
No, they never
if
have.
they never did, then they're gonna be
You
fine.
may want to, depending upon how much she has to take out, it's like to everybody, who they have to take out, there are certain requirements to get a loan.
That's right. It's gonna be the cash people that are
Right,
most
take out the
likely.
kitchen, you're no longer gonna get it.
And there's gonna be plenty of these lenders that will loan money on that when it's $20,000 worth of work. It's a $500,000 house, maybe $20,000 just to put in the flooring and the insulation and sheetrock down below. There will be those rehab loan kind of things again, where you can add in $20,000 to $40,000. It's gonna be a small percentage of the total value, but they'll be out there. They are out there.
What if you are in a subdivision and your house didn't flood, but everyone around you did? How does that affect the home that did not flood?
If it's a subdivision that's typically flooded all the time, I think there's going to be we do not want, the city's public policy is gonna be, I don't want 1 or 2 or 3 little houses stranded around, and we're gonna tear down 90 and leave 5. I don't think that's gonna be good. Now, so it's gonna be, so if Ray's High was here, you're gonna take a street like this, and it doesn't mean that this one flooded, this one didn't, because this one was higher. Maybe these are not gonna get bought up and they'll be raised up, but I don't think we're gonna have subdivisions where there's just 3 houses left out of 100. And we'll buy the whole subdivision, even if the other house didn't flood.
That didn't work out well for North.
That's right. I mean, it doesn't, it's just not good. I mean, it doesn't work out in that, on Nashua or whatever, even after Ike or whatever, we had, they bought out some of those houses, we just have these vacant lots sitting there. Nobody maintains them. They're mosquito traps. You just dump the trash on them. I mean, that's not gonna work too well. But, I will be honest with you, there is no money for that, so somebody has to extend the credit card limit and allow them to go and do that. And so it's just going to be a fight over how the money works. It's just going to be, at the national level, and then it's going to be at the state level, and it's going to be the local. The local level's not going to want to have what we just talked about, but there may not be enough money to address it, so you may end up with some of that. Yes?
So, we're talking about flooding, and we're talking about this flooding, but Irma is not going to be considered the new normal, right?
Irma or Harvey?
I'm sorry, Harvey.
Harvey is not going to be the new normal, but I think what you need to be realistic about is that the tax day flood and the Memorial Day floods are the new normal.
Right.
But they're not 100-year floods, they're 1-year
But
floods.
homes that flooded in Harvey.
That's right. I think if you only flooded in Harvey,
Memorial, not
that's
the tax day. So it almost seems, I was thinking about this, should we have something in MLS where we start indicating which floods a house was impacted by?
No,
No,
because I still think people don't want to buy a house without full disclosure that it was flooded, and then their kid get asthma, and they can't breathe, and the mold
Right,
potential.
but a
So
home that flooded in Harvey, that didn't flood in tax day.
that's just going to be people's due diligence, and I think that if you sold in a panic in Harvey, it doesn't mean that you need to sell in a panic. You just need to wait till the panic's over, which might only be 90 days or 120 days or something. So I would fix up my house. If it had never flooded before and not likely to flood again, and I think common sense would tell you, I think you could remodel that house, rent it for a year, and sell it the next year just fine. And I think you could make money. And if you try and sell that house today, you're not gonna make the same amount of money you would have made before the flood. No way.
So even if you're in a neighborhood that 161 out of 165 house flooded,
And you're the fourth?
no, you are one of the flooded ones, you haven't flooded in the past. So what's that future going to be? The whole neighborhood is pretty much flooded and trying to resell that house.
It's all local.
Yeah.
If that neighborhood is here and here's the Barker Reservoir, and if we dredge this reservoir and we create this new reservoir here, that subdivision is most likely not going to flood again for another 100 years. I think it's going to be just fine. So I don't think they're going to go buy out that particular neighborhood. It's not one solution in these things. There's 5 or 6. So if A happened, which was proposed, and B happened, which is proposed, then I think that subdivision's fine. I don't think that makes economic sense. And you're on the opposite side is the city loses tax revenue every time we take down that house and we don't replace that. I mean, the city wants to rebuild the houses where it makes sense to rebuild the houses because we get that tax revenue and thriving neighborhoods. I mean, if it just kind of depends on where it is. I think I'd have to look at it and tell you, did I really think there was a solution? I think we will get enough money from the federal government, and I think that people, when explained, want to solve the problem so they don't go through this problem again, that we will fix some of this sort of stuff. But every time you talk about dredging the reservoirs, you get every environmentalist out there about some mussel or clam or whatever, then the whole world's going to end because we dredged the deal 2 feet. But if we'd have dredged it like we knew to dredge it, we wouldn't have had the problem. So that would have solved a number of these subdivisions that did not historically flood it. And I think you're just going to say, dredge it. The people are going to want it dredged.
In condominiums,
Yep.
when the exterior has suffered damage,
Yep.
is it true that the homeowners are not obligated to disclose that? Because
No, they have to disclose. No, that's not true. They must disclose it. They may not be paying for it, but that's certainly a potential for a special assessment. So now you don't want to buy your condo and have a $30,000, whatever, it costs $100,000, and then you get a $30,000 bill you're going to pay out over 3 years. So yes, you know something that the HOA, of which you're a co-owner of, is going to do in the future, which will cause an increase of your HOA or a special assessment, then yeah, you must disclose that. Even though you're not directly paying for it, you're paying your 0.0012% of whatever interest that you own of that association. You're a co-owner of that.
Well, I was going to put an offer on a condominium of that, and the other realtor told me, you are wrong.
They are wrong. Let me just tell them they are wrong. Yes.
Okay, so TV last night, they were talking about Meyerland.
Yep.
So, and they were talking about that the city might buy out some of the houses in Meyerland, but then they also turned around quickly and said that Gray's Bayou is going to be finished in 2 years and there won't be any more flooding in Meyerland.
I don't think anyone should say there's never going to be any flooding in Meyerland.
But then they said there's only going to be.
Address the issue.
I know, but they said there are only going to be a handful of buyouts in Meyerland because of the project being so close to being finished.
Some of that could be true. I don't think they're going to buy out all of Meyerland either. I do think there is a solution other than buyouts for those portions. I think if I faced Gray's Bayou or Green's Bayou or one of those bayous, you have a better chance of us widening the bayou and widening the green space adjacent to it and rerouting some of the streets. But yeah, I don't think we're not going to buy out all of Meyerland. That's probably not what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Can the city afford to do that?
It's the federal government where the money's really coming from, so it's not gonna be city tax dollars for the buyout.
So anyway, I have a client, he got 6 inches of water in Meyerland. The only house on his entire block that has ever gotten water in the last 25 years.
And I think, and common sense tells me that guy's probably not likely to flood in the near future.
Right.
There is always a chance that anything can flood.
Right.
Because I can build a high rise right here, a 19-story high rise that causes that house to flood that's never flooded again. The flooding is not just from the bayous anymore, it's from other development. That's what they've got to realize, and that's what they're not taking into account in these maps over here. They're looking at rising water from a bayou, and it's runoff from other areas that are impacting these areas just as much. So I think that, as we discussed in the meeting, They will rewrite the maps. They wanted to rewrite the maps. They just didn't have the money to rewrite the map. So they have the technology to increase the likelihood of what those maps are. We're going to quit calling these things 100 years or 500 years. They're going to come up with another name for it because it's just too confusing for people.
Well, it is, 1%, the whole 1% that they started changing it to quite some time ago, which is really more reflective of your 1% chance in any given year. But also an interesting fact that I think I learned from this guy right here, and when I was training things, is that 1% is a national thing. It comes from the national. It's not 1% chance in Houston based on Houston sea level. It's a 1% chance based on the national.
You can go over all that.
Yeah.
He's really smart on that. All right, any other real estate stuff right quick, because at least will take a while. I want to get everything. We're available to answer any questions whatsoever. We don't necessarily have to go, I can go over elevation certificates and surveys next week if you run out of time or whatever. I do, so whatever you're gonna do whatever you're gonna do. I need them to understand too how the deductibles and things work when emergency comes in. You think you have a 1% deductible on your flood insurance, but if that insurance company decides that it wants to charge 2% or 3% because of the conditions in that deal, your 1% can be modified real easily. I don't even know if we're seeing that yet here, but it certainly happens across the country.
Yeah, not on the flood policy, but on the home policy.
All right. I'm going to turn it over to you. I'm sorry, one other thing I need to do before. So I want to introduce Mario Castillo here. And he is new to our firm. Mario is not a realtor, not in real estate. He is in political affairs, predominantly for me and my vision, okay? Kathleen will continue to do exactly what she does, which is address issues related to realtors, the city council and the planning commission and the deed restrictions and the historic commissions and anything related. And she's where you're going to go. Mario doesn't know anything about a deed restriction. He doesn't know anything really about the planning commission. That's not what he's going to do. He's going to help me identify school board candidates and state representatives and city council members that we might, or in bond elections and special elections and things, all political, totally political. And remember, everyone these days has a political action committee. The Houston Association of Realtors has a political action committee. The Texas Association of Realtors has a political action committee. Heritage Texas Properties has a political action committee. And so Boulevard Realty has a political action committee these days. So it doesn't cost you anything. We don't collect $50 for anything. It's totally funded by myself and other outside individuals outside the firm. So he's going to work in politics for the first month or two or so. He's really just going to get to know the lay of the land. So he's over there working at the Harvey Relief Hub at the moment, seeing what I do in my spare time. But Mario will have a desk over here by me or somewhere when we get in one. Do try and come to the Harvey Relief Hub. We need you. There are plenty of needs out there. If you want to get on TV, we have a news, Fox News tomorrow around lunchtime or whatever. I need a hustle and bustle of people. So if you just want to come work tomorrow at lunchtime, come right on over there and we'll try and get you on Fox News. Thank you all.
Are you driving?
Rhonda is now. She can go to anything on a browser, or we can put that on. You want to do that?
So that's not. Okay, so my name is Lee. I'm an insurance agent, and I really owe Bill Baldwin, my firstborn son, because he put me on the map 16 years ago when I started this. He was one of the main reasons why I was able to actually pay bills, just from my partnership relationship with him. So I really appreciate it. And I apologize, I don't come around enough. There's a lot of new faces, there's a lot of old faces, actually, familiar faces, but it's good to be back.
Yeah, don't say old.
Yeah.
Not
Good familiar faces.
Familiar faces, yeah.
Go to the presentation. And so what I wanted to do, as you can imagine, as an insurance agent, I have been inundated with calls and claims. It's been the most stressful time of my life, bar none. I've been asked to speak a lot. Let's do the very first one, flood insurance basics for realtors.
Just a little bit.
And so last night I did a 3-hour seminar for people in Bel Air who flooded at my church, and it could have lasted all night because there were so many questions on what's happening with the flood claims, what happens with the flood insurance. I don't understand my flood policy. And so I wanted to just kind of say, and Bill wanted me to come in and train you guys on elevation certificates. I really can't imagine a boring topic and going through an elevation certificate. But I can go into as much detail as you want. But what I want to do is kind of right now just outline a couple of really important questions that everybody's asking right now. But then also go over some flood basics, and then we can understand how this elevation certificate works. So I'm just trying to bundle everything together, and let's end at no later than 11:20. Is that fair? Beautiful. So I'll hold at 11:20, and if y'all have other questions, we can ask. But I can talk for 8 hours. So, question number one that I'm getting from everybody right now is, my house flooded, am I gonna still be able to buy flood insurance? And I'm gonna expand that question. Can I buy flood insurance right now? I didn't have it through the storm, it's freaking me out, I need flood insurance. And the answer is yes, you can buy flood insurance, but there's a 30-day wait. Okay? Those homes that have flooded once, twice, 3 times, multiple times a year, they can still buy flood insurance also. And here's the weird thing for them, is it doesn't cost them any more than, if they flooded 10 times versus if you've never flooded before. Part of the reason that arguably that FEMA might have some financial issues is because they're continuing to pay claims on homes that have repeatedly flooded. Right, so again, can I buy flood insurance now? Absolutely, but there's a 30-day wait.
And that 30-day wait is what's been, that's not just for eternity that I'm aware of.
They started the National Flood Insurance Program that was built in, so those people, and you cannot imagine how many people call me the day the hurricane's going in, I need to buy flood insurance now. I know I didn't want it first, I want it now. Put it on the house now. Okay, give me a credit card, but it's not good until 30 days from today. What? They don't understand it. So there's a 30-day wait.
If you are just buying a house, is there an exception if you're buying?
The only exception to the 30-day wait is if you are buying a house with a loan associated with the purchase of the home. If you're buying a house with cash, 30-day wait, right? There has to be loan activity on the closing date in order to, it's the only way you can waive that 30-day wait. Okay? All right, so question number 2 that I'm getting is, my house flooded. What should I do? Can I renovate? Can I rebuild? Can I walk away and scrape in the house and just say, the heck with this home, I'm done with it? I can't answer that question, but I'm going to give you some facts for you guys to take back to your people. And by the way, anybody flood here? This is probably the luckiest group of people. Business flooded. So,
like all 60 of our agents and almost all of our listings, all were okay.
that is just absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
Was it
Praise God for the heights, right? So for those homes that have flooded, in order to make the decision on whether you can rebuild, renovate, scrape and rebuild, or just walk away, there's a bunch of different factors. Number one, do you have a lender? Because the lender is your partner in that. They are securing the collateral. If you have a lender, they want to know that you're going to renovate. That's their collateral, so it's secure. You can continue to live in it, right? But all of the other questions and all the other analyses has to come from how high is the home, right? And so if your house is flooded, and it's never flooded before, and you are in the low risk flood zone, meaning the lender didn't require you to buy flood insurance for flood zone X, you can do whatever you want to your house. You're not held to this 50% rule. Have y'all heard about the 50% rule? If your house is more than 50% damaged, the value of the home on HCAD, there's a value, if you go to hcad.org, there's a value associated to the dwelling of your home. If your home is damaged more than 50% of that value, you are not allowed to renovate your home unless you build your home to compliant elevation. And compliant elevation is 1 foot above base flood elevation before going to okay? So, but if you've been flooded zone X and your home is flooded, but the flood insurance was not required again, you can do what you want. In the higher risk zones, it all depends on how high your house is. Okay, so let's go over the elevations and what all the elevations mean. Right, so if you live in the high-risk flood zones, there is this thing called the base flood elevation that is established. It's otherwise known as the 1% elevation, meaning there's 1% chance in any given year that there will be floodwaters at that elevation, and it's an elevation above sea level, or it is otherwise known as the elevation for the 100-year floodplain. So when it rains, but more practically, if it rains 14 inches in 2 days, there should be water at that elevation. Okay, so I live in Westview, and all the Meyerland, Grace Heights, and that entire area. The base flood elevation for those areas roughly 50 feet above sea level. Okay, so say 50 feet above sea level is the top of this desk, this present. Okay, and say that my house's foundation is where my feet are. Okay, so if it rains 14 inches in 2 days, the science says rainwater should be at the top of this credenza. My foundation is where my feet are. Is this a good elevation or a bad elevation? A terrible elevation. Okay, how many times has it rained 14 inches in 2 days in the last 3 years? At least 3, right? So those homes that had lower elevation than the base flood elevation, they're supposed to flood, right? The science tells you that they're supposed to flood. And so if your house is below the point in which there should be rainwater, if it rains 2 days and 14 inches, then to me, the decision's pretty simple, because number one, there's several limitations if your house is low. Number one, you're out of compliance. So that you may not be able to get permits to rebuild unless you raise your home 12 inches above the point in which there should be rainwater. It rains 14 inches in 2 days. Okay, so implication number one, if you're low. Implication number two, your flood insurance is going to be really expensive. If you are at base flood elevation, your house's foundation is at base flood elevation, you, roughly speaking, would pay $3,500 a year for flood insurance on your home. And this is in the high-risk zones. For every foot under the base flood elevation, add $1,000 a year. Okay? So if your home is 3 foot below base flood elevation, your home's flood insurance should be about $6,500 a year forever. Okay? So last implication, implication number one, you're out of compliance. Number two, flood insurance is really expensive. Number three, you are going to keep flooding. Period. And so if your home is below that point, then to me the decision's pretty easy. You can't renovate unless you raise. Right now, compliance. So compliance is 12 inches above. So generally speaking, if your house is just above base flood elevation, you're good to go. But in order to be in compliance with the City of Houston building codes, 12 inches. So if you're 11 inches above base flood, you're still out of compliance. Now, it doesn't matter if your home floods. If a tree falls on that house and it damages the home for greater than 50% of its value, they won't issue you permits to rebuild. Or they can't, they may not issue you. I mean, I can't say definitive words like that, but the rules are pretty clear. Right? If you want to renovate a home that's 6 inches above base flood or below, and if the renovations increase the value over 50%, you may not get permits to do that either. I can't speak for the people that do the work without permitting, because there's a lot of that stuff going on also. But if you're going to renovate a home that's below compliant levels, you've got to be really, really diligent about how to mitigate the floods and the floodwaters that come through. Okay, now, so homes that are above base flood elevation, and a foot above, again, welcome to do whatever you want. This was a freak flood event. Yes, it happens all the time, but very, very few times have I ever seen houses that are above base flood elevation flood. And that's Allison, and this event that happened. Allison was in 2001, so 16 years later. I mean, I guess every 15 to 16 years, count on 1,000-year flooding in the Houston area. Okay, so, but one of my employees, he flooded. He was 2 feet above base flood elevation. Okay? House has never had floodwaters in it before. A lot of flood zone X homes have had floodwaters in it, and Bel Air, all of them, most of the newer homes in Bel Air, they're built to compliance. They are, but they flood. Very strange situation, isn't it? Do you have a question?
Yes, the ones that flooded, in this, that you're talking about was not the reservoir, it was the flood itself.
Right, the flood itself. And in the reservoir is a whole different story, right? So the reservoir, you live behind the reservoir and you didn't know it, that's kind of crazy, right? And so Cinco Ranch is one of the hardest places for me to actually sell flood insurance. People are like, if my house floods, it's on this hill, man, we got major problems. They got major problems. Famous last words right there. And then the spillover that came over the Addicks Reservoir, who would have known that that would have ever happened? And then the release of the Addicks and the Parkers Dam. I had a house at the mouth of those two reservoirs that I mean, it stressed me out so much that it was because we can just watch it. So I ended up sandbagging the house and it didn't flood. Probably spent a couple $1,000 sandbagging it. But
Yeah, so let's take, for example, houses in Bel Air that are new construction that have been elevated. The garage is obviously on grade level because you don't generally elevate the garage. So the house is fine, no water, but you get 6, 8, 12 inches of water in the garage.
Right.
How is that defined? Did that home flood? Did that home not flood? And how does that kick in for the?
So, okay, so to me, number one, to me, I don't think the home flooded. The home didn't flood. The enclosure below the home flooded. But so the people that are filing claims for those things, number one, if you have, I don't have another thing here. So say this is my house, right? And my house is built on pier and beam. Right? There's a crawl space up there, and I have a garage that is basically level with pier and beam. Okay, so this garage is lower than the first floor of my home. Contents in the building itself, if it floods, not covered on FEMA's flood policy. So, do you have a flood claim? No, because you're not going to pay for anything. But if you file the claim, it's going to show up that there was a claim. I paid nothing. But people will say, "Well, did you flood?" And so, I don't know from a legal perspective if you have to disclose that the home flooded. What I would probably say, just to cover my rear, is I would probably say my house didn't flood, but I got water in the garage.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
FEMA will cover a window unit, a separate freezer, and one other thing, and I can't remember, but other than that, like if it's that bottom part of your garage and it's pier and beam, they will not cover other, I think it's just a separate
very,
freezer
very
and a washer and dryer, and I think that's it you're allowed to have. So if you ended up making a man cave or anything like that, they don't care about it.
Sheetrock, electrical,
No.
you're just done.
You said that it's in a 100-year floodplain, and it's more than 50% damage. They won't allow you to renovate without raising it. Then you say, you can't say that definitively. So like, what's a situation where they would allow you to renovate, and what about a home that is in a 100-year floodplain, never flooded before, water entirely?
So the first part of your question is that the cities, the municipalities, since I don't control what they do, I have no idea whether they'll issue permits or not. And they may actually not require you to get permits if your home only had 6 inches of water in it and none of the electrical is damaged. If it's just wood floors, cabinets, and things of that nature that's cosmetic, I don't think you have to get permits to renovate the home. And so you just renovate the home if you wanted to. Okay. Now, the homes that have never flooded and they're outside of the high-risk flood zones, there's no bearing on them because they don't regulate those. They only regulate the ones that are high-risk flood zone, and they only regulate the ones if they're below the base flood elevation, below 12 inches above the base flood elevation. Okay. And how do you know if you're below or compliant or non-compliant? You have to get the elevation certificate. Okay. And so before we go into the great details about the elevation certificate, let me just kind of go over flood insurance in general. Okay, so just to kind of give you some high-level basics, and before I go into flood insurance basics, let me just go into homeowners insurance basics. Okay, so this. Sure.
Do 50%, 2 questions, can you 50% damage to the point where you really need to build, what could be, and you have flood insurance, what will the insurance company give you for rebuilding the house? Is that 75% of the market value?
So you're asking if the home is substantially damaged,
Yes.
what will FEMA, if you have FEMA flood insurance,
Yes.
what will FEMA give you for the damage? Is that the question?
Correct.
Okay, so if you have damage to your home, whether it's substantial or not substantial, the the NFIP, the FEMA's flood contract says they'll pay you to replace what was damaged. They don't care if it was substantially damaged or not. So say it is substantially damaged and and it's $100,000 worth of damage. They'll write you a check for $100,000. You pay the contractors to renovate. You pay somebody to bulldoze and rebuild. You walk away. You do whatever. You pay the loan off. You do whatever you want to.
Now, same scenario, no flood insurance.
Okay, same scenario, no flood insurance. You have to apply for FEMA disaster assistance, and there's a whole new set of rules that aren't insurance related that I don't know, right? But my understanding is they will write you a check for what your hardship is, as much as they can of your hardship. But I don't know if they'll say, hey, we'll write you this check, but you have to live here. We'll write you this check, you can prove it, but you have to. There are rules associated with the money that they give you.
But it would not, it wouldn't be the same scenario if you had flood insurance.
That is correct. Totally separate situation. Now, flood insurance, if you have flood insurance, they're gonna pay for the damage to the dwelling and the contents that are inside the dwelling, right? The FEMA assistance, they do everything above and beyond these four walls, okay? For example, since flood insurance doesn't cover additional living expenses, it pays for you that they may pay for you to live somewhere else. The FEMA disaster assistance pay for you somewhere else. And then they pay for lost wages because you can't work because you're trying to get your house together. So it all depends on your financial hardship from the FEMA disaster situation. Okay, so great point. That's a good segue into this section. Okay, so homeowners insurance, before I go into flood insurance basics, homeowners insurance covers primarily four things. It covers the dwelling of your home. It covers the contents that are inside. It covers the loss of use of this home. So if you lose the usage of the home because the hurricane rips the roof off, you can't live there while it's being rebuilt. Homeowners insurance covers that, and it covers your liability. So if you accidentally hurt somebody or damage somebody's property, homeowners insurance covers that as well. So oversimplifying, it covers four things, right? If any accidental direct damage that happens to the home, a good homeowners insurance is insurance policy is going to cover the damage associated to the home. Now, there are exclusions to what homeowners insurance policies will cover. And let me ask you this, is flooding included on a homeowner's insurance policy?
No.
It's not. Well, it's not. It depends on the definition of flooding. So your toilet overflows or the pipe breaks under your toilet deal and it floods your house. Should that be covered on your homeowner's insurance?
Yes.
You should if you have a decent homeowner's insurance policy, right? What is not covered is when water rises from the outside and comes into the inside of the home. How about a leak from the ceiling? Leak from the ceiling, covered on your homeowner's insurance policy. Roof is ripped off and it floods because it rains in the house and floods up. It's covered on your homeowner's insurance policy. So the only thing that's not covered from a water damage perspective is rising water that comes into the home. To get that coverage, you have to have a FEMA flood policy. Now, so we talked about additional living expenses covered, loss of use of the home. Again, roof is ripped off or the house burns down. You can't live there. Homeowners insurance is designed to pay for you to live in a like kind of quality home while your home is rebuilt. But what's not covered? Rising water that comes in. So you can't invoke loss of use coverage of this dwelling unless it's a covered loss. So if your home floods, FEMA doesn't give you additional living expenses. This is your homeowner's insurance policy. No, because you can't invoke it, right? So you are out of luck unless FEMA's disaster assistance allows you some sort of coverage for the somewhere else while you're displaced. Okay, so that's just some basics on homeowners insurance. So rising water not included. In order to get it, you have to have FEMA's flood policy. Now, FEMA's flood policy, this is the most frustrating thing to understand about FEMA's flood insurance policy. It's not a true, and here it is, it is not a true insurance policy. Insurance policies are designed to totally indemnify you for your loss, meaning if you lose something, insurance policies are supposed to make you whole for the loss. FEMA's flood policy does not make you whole. Sometimes it doesn't even get close to making you whole, right? It covers pretty much only two things: the dwelling of your home and the contents of your home. The dwelling of the home, the maximum coverage that you can get from FEMA is $250,000. Say you're in Cinco Ranch, one of those $1 million homes in Cinco Ranch, and you get sewage water in your house because of the flood. and it sits there for 30 days.
Yikes.
It's $250,000 enough to cover your $1 million home. It ain't, right? So how do you close the gap between 250 and $1 million after it's already flooded? You're writing checks. So it's not a full indemnification policy. It just gives you up to 250. It's just designed to help you if you had a hardship, right? The contents in your home, garage sale value. You have a chair that you paid, $10,000 chair that George Washington sat in. It's pennies on the dollar with FEMA's flood insurance policy. As a matter of fact, the only thing that FEMA's flood policy will pay replacement cost is your primary residence. If your primary residence, the four walls that are damaged, that they will replace the old stuff with the new stuff. Everything else is basically actual cash value, otherwise known as garage sale value. Okay? So is that an indemnification process? It is not. It's just designed to help you a little bit. Okay.
What about, apart from FEMA and what they would give you, where will that homeowner's policy kick in? Or will it not kick in during what we just had?
So the only time your homeowner's policy is going to kick in a situation like we just had is if there's damage to your home that's otherwise covered and it wasn't flood related. For example, I was home during the hurricane. I noticed there was water coming through my daughter's bathroom light fixture, so I crawled up in the attic. Sure enough, my roof is leaking. Roof is leaking. I'm getting water damage. I could file a claim for that if I want. And these big storms that come in, the adjusters for these private carriers, they feel sorry for you a lot of times. And they know that FEMA's flood policy doesn't have additional living expenses, so they'll say, oh, you're missing some shingles, you've got some water damage here, we'll give you some loss of use coverage. Okay, and so these homes that you saw on fire during the flood, those, if you consider anybody lucky, and they didn't have flood insurance, those guys are lucky because they had homeowners insurance. They actually had coverage.
Lucky or smart.
Yeah, lucky or smart, exactly. That was a joke. That was a joke. That guy didn't have flood insurance. So
It's a little confused. I had friends who flooded in Allison and Memorial Day flood, and they had flood insurance. It didn't cover the loss of use, but somehow they were paid rent. And these are not poor people. They were paid. Wow.
yeah, so last time at our seminar, we learned some interesting things. During Allison, we had a guy that said that FEMA paid 18 months for him to live in a light kind of quality house. They got paid 12 months. Totally can't count on that unless it's a presidential declared disaster, which this was, and so were those other storms. So they got a little bit, but to go without flood insurance and to rely on the federal assistance is really dangerous because the federal assistance can be $1,000, it could be $500, it could be $30,000, it could be 18 months living somewhere else. It's all over the board. But the bottom line is FEMA is broke. Okay, and so if you're going to rely on a broke institution to continue to help, I would think that the money's gonna run out somehow, some way, right? And it's already run out. We just have to figure out how to get more of it to help. Okay, so how do you know if your house is in the highest zone of government reset? The favorite tool that I use, if you call, the easiest way for you is to email me and I'll give it to you. Right, so I use a tool. It's an overlay map on to Google Earth. If you have Google Earth on your desktop, you can search staydry.knz, and that along with another tool that's next to that tool when you search for it is an awesome tool that shows neighborhood, the entire city, anywhere really in North America or in the
What was that site again?
It's well, first of all, Google Earth, download Google Earth,
right.
And the file name is called StayDry. And there's a extension .kn as in Mary, Z as in zebra. And there's a brand new version like 3.1 that just came out. Super, super powerful because it tells you base flood elevations, it tells you all kinds of cool stuff. Okay, but that's my favorite tool. If you use that tool, there's another tool called riskmap6.com. And riskmap6.com is extremely powerful also. even more powerful because it shows you where the maps are changing. The maps have been changing down in Galveston, and they've been changing in that Addicts Reservoir area for the last year or so. So if there's homes for sale in those areas, you gotta check that map to make sure if it goes in high risk zone or low risk zone. Yeah, risk map 6, and then it's the number 6.com. Right, and then also, so I tell you, say you email me the address, and I tell you it's in the low risk zone. I'm the best insurance agent in the world. Whatever I tell you is the golden truth. But then you get 3 days from closing, and TAP says, hey, your house is in a high risk zone. Whose determination wins, mine or TAP's?
Yours.
TAP's. I know I'm awesome, Rhonda, but it's always the guy.
I always vote you.
It's the lender. The lender always wins because it's their money.
What about freeflood.com?
I am not familiar with freeflood.com.
Okay.
It's out there. Yeah.
And that's where you get to see whether you're axing the guy.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with that.
I'm maybe not. Did he say anything I disagree with?
And he told me.
Anything I said?
I would never say that.
45
We're on the same page. We're on the same page.
We're on the same page.
So far, so good.
Everything I heard.
But you haven't left yet, so.
Maybe not.
So free flood, there's all kinds of tools. I'm just sharing you the ones that I use and the ones that the industry uses. And so free flood may be a consumer tool. The tools that we use are generated by. So the bottom line is, if before you do anything, I'm a great resource, and the resources that I just gave you are great resources. But if the lender has a different determination, their determination is going to win. So I would always check with them during the option period also to verify that their determination is the same as the insurance agent's. If there's a lender involved. So we talked about the fact that there's only $250,000 coverage for the dwelling, $100,000 for contents, and that's basically it, right? And so also, people that if your house rains, but over the fall, all the leaves backed up in it. It rains, water comes into your home. Does FEMA's flood policy pay for that? It doesn't. Does your homeowner's insurance pay for that? It doesn't. So who pays for that? You do. Okay, so there's some major limitations on FEMA's flood policy, and you just gotta be really careful. It's definitely worth it to buy it wherever you live, but just understand that there's major limitations. So it's not a true insurance policy. It's basically there just to help you handle hardship. Okay. So now, shifting gears, going from flood insurance basics to how flood insurance is rated. Right? If you are, and so to understand how flood insurance is rated, you have to understand the elevation and the elevation certificates, and we'll go into some of those details right now. But let me just say this: if you've never flooded, and your home is in flood zone X, the low risk flood zones, then you are the most you'll pay for flood insurance is $450. And by the way, in the greater Houston area, there's 2 flood zones. There's flood zone X, which is the good one, and there's flood zone A, which is the bad one. Okay, flood zone X, lenders aren't required to make you buy flood insurance. The most it will be is $450. It's otherwise known as the year. There's a 0.2% chance in any given year that there'll be rainwaters in your home if you live in flood zone X. And you do not need an elevation certificate to buy flood insurance if you live in flood zone X.
You mean 1,000 years?
Yeah, it's 500 years old. Because the 1,000-year flood zone flooded a lot of flood zone X homes. So 500-year flood zone, but during Allison, a lot, 66% of the 70,000 structures that flooded during Allison were flood zone X, right? And they considered that the 500-year flood, right? Flood zone AE is otherwise known as the 1% zone. So there's a 1% chance in any given year, and Rhonda is right, these are national averages. So they take all the desert areas and play with all of the tropical areas. So these are national averages. So they say that those are only 1%. There will be floodwaters in your home if you live in flood zone AE. Lenders will require it, flood insurance, if you live in flood zone AE. Your flood insurance, there is no limit to the cost of flood insurance. It all has to do with the level of your home. So I can't tell you, I can't even shoot from the hip really to tell you how much flood insurance is going to be without seeing an elevation certificate. So yes, ma'am.
I'm pretty sure I'm paying like $500 for mine. And it has something to do with, because I'm Pyramid.
Oh, yeah. So I should revise it. It's $500 versus $450. So roughly speaking, $500 if you're on Pyramid. Makes no sense at all.
Okay.
I have fought with people on that over and over. I've just reached and never been. So I lose that money every single time. So it makes no sense. So $500, you'll pay no more than $500 if you have it or if you live in flood zone X. Okay. Yes, ma'am.
So, in Texas, they don't go by zip code to determine whether or not, what level you're at in terms of elevation.
Absolutely not. Zip code has nothing to do. Yeah, her question is in Texas, do they go by zip to determine what level you are in? No, and I don't know if anywhere, any state that goes by zip code. New Jersey? Weird over there.
Yeah.
So no, I don't know that. So I mean, that would be really interesting. Segregational system there. They do that. Right. So that's very ironic. Okay, so real quick, I've got 10 minutes, 15 minutes to go over elevation certificates. Okay, so this handout right here, there's a frequently asked questions of elevation certificates on it. Let's just go through that really, really quickly. So first of all, what is an elevation certificate? It is the only document that FEMA will accept that communicates the difference between the first floor of your home and the base flood elevation. So it tells you the elevation difference between the base flood elevation and the first floor of your home. Okay, so basically speaking, it's very, very simple. People like to really overemphasize and over-detail what all of this stuff means on an elevation certificate, but it's one calculation. It's the first floor of your home elevation minus the base flood elevation gives you the elevation of your home. Right? There's all kinds of details that kind of dictate that on this form. We'll go over in a second, but it's one simple calculation. Okay. So question number 2. What is the base flood elevation since it's the calculation of the first floor minus the base flood elevation? We talked about that a little bit. It is the point in which there should be rainwater if it rains 14 and 32 days. Okay. And since it's the 1% level, it makes no sense to get an elevation certificate for flood zone X because in flood zone X, there's no established 1% level. It's only in the high risk zones. Does that make sense? So if you're buying, your prospective buyers are buying in flood zone X, you'll hear elevation certificate, you'll think elevation certificate, flood zone X, you don't need it. Only, just remember, only the high risk flood zones. Okay? So, and what is the elevation of the first floor? It really, really depends. So this is where we spend a little bit of time. So if you look at this nice colorful document on what is the elevation of the first floor, you'll notice that FEMA has come up with all kinds of guidelines as to what they think the elevation of your first floor is. So I'm going to boil it down to kind of some simple things real quick. In the most common things and most common types of construction in the areas in which you work in basically Houston altogether. Right? The elevation of your first floor has everything to do with what type of foundation it is and how your home is constructed. If your home is built on a slab foundation, concrete, it's very, very simple. All you have to do is figure out what the elevation of the top of the slab is and subtract the base flood elevation from it, and that is the elevation of your home. So that's a very, very simple thing to do. Yes, ma'am.
What if the home is all one level, but there's a little bit lower area, like a little lime cellar type area? Is that considered the first floor elevation when it's only just one room that's kind of lowered, maybe a foot?
So, if it's inside the house, so in the seventies, they had the sunken living rooms and some wine cellars are inside. If it's inside, the surveyors don't know about it. But if there's a floodplain, if the FEMA district walks in and goes, oh, you have a sunken living room, or you have a sunken area below the slab of the home, contents and the building that are damaged by the flood aren't covered. Does that make sense? Okay, so.
What about regular flood insurance?
Regular.
I mean, would not use that.
So when and I apologize, so I'm going back and forth. So when I say FEMA's flood insurance policy, I'm saying the regular flood insurance.
Okay.
Elevator usually has a recessed thing.
Yeah.
What if that floods and it ruins your elevator motor and all that stuff?
No coverage. If your elevator's sunken down in there, there's no coverage for it. And if your elevator just happens to be at the bottom as it floods, there wouldn't be coverage for that either. So, but the elevator shaft is typically concrete, and so you don't really have to worry about the damage with that. But it's all, it is all the equipment that's in there. Okay, so before I go into the details of the elevation certificate, let me go through the rest of the questions. When do you need an elevation certificate? Only in flood zone AE, right? So if you are buying or selling a house in flood zone AE, your prospective buyers should have an elevation certificate in their hands. Now, there's all kinds of rules, and you'll run into to insurance agents and to real estate agents that will say, you don't need an elevation certificate for the home. You can get flood insurance for this. But if you're the prospective buyer's agent, do not accept that answer. If they call me for flood insurance, I'm going to require that they have an elevation certificate because the buyer needs to know the elevation of the home. I can't tell you how many of these Meyerland buyers, Meyerland homeowners, had no idea that their homes were 3 feet under the base flood elevation. And the response that you get from that is, if I would have known that, I would have never bought the house. If that would have been explained to me, I would have never bought the house, right? So older homes, it is true, you can buy flood insurance without an elevation certificate, but it is malpractice for me to sell that policy to them if I don't explain to them the difference in what they're buying. It's okay to buy, a bad situation as long as you know you're buying a bad situation. Okay? Jim?
Who does the elevation certificate?
Great question. So right before that question is also when do you get it? If you have a prospective buyer, if the seller doesn't have the elevation certificate, make sure you get the elevation certificate before the option period expires. It can be a deal killer. Yes, sir.
So somebody buys a home, 7 years goes down the road, they hand them the elevation certificate, and the elevation certificate that he had from 7 years ago is not even.
Elevation certificate, that's one of the questions. It doesn't expire, right? The elevation of the first floor maybe moves 1/10 of an inch over a decade or whatever. There's not much movement in it. It doesn't expire. You can still use it. However, in 2007, all the maps changed. So if the certificate is older than 2007, I always recommend getting a new one. And by the way, I am very particular about the elevation certificate. If it wasn't done by a certain engineer, for me, I wouldn't accept it. If I were buying a house that was in a high-risk zone, I would make a specific surveying company do it. And that surveying company, the surveying companies do the elevation certificate, and my favorite surveying company is Survey One. They're incredibly accurate and they're incredibly detailed with what they do. They fix so many elevation certificate problems that I have, and their number is 281-393-1382.
It's on your sheets.
Yeah, and if you tell them that I referred you, it's a $300 discount.
You don't do precision?
I like precision. The precision guys and I, we speak kind of the same language. So they help out a lot, but they're not as responsive as Survey One. And Survey One, they're just, I can't explain how much I like them because I really like them a lot, but I do like the precision people as well. Precision, so they're very willing to fix their problems if they have problems as well. Okay. Now, whose responsibility is it to get the elevation certificate? It is the seller of the home, the owner of the home's responsibility. I can't tell you how many listing agents refuse to put the elevation certificates in. You get an offer, right? And then the buyer wants to see the elevation, and the seller says, "No, you go buy it." Yep. Well, what happens if you walk? We just did, I mean, a walk on VR just bought you an elevation certificate. It goes to your house. It's not mine, right? So if the seller doesn't have it and they need flood insurance and it's in the high-risk flood zone, it just delays the closing. It just delays the process. So the seller should purchase it. I get into arguments all the time with listing agents over this as well. But if you just think about the logic, the seller, the owner of the home should provide it. Okay?
Now, is the people that are in this high-risk zone being regulated to have flood insurance or not?
The only regulation on that is the lender. If you're in the high-risk flood zone, the lender regulates the fact that you need flood insurance because they want to secure their collateral.
So the buyer should be in the knowledge that they're buying a
Yes.
high risk, even though they didn't read the documents.
Yeah, and there's checks and balances on
Well,
that.
they can't get a loan.
Right.
Right,
They-
I know what I'm saying.
yeah.
They have a loan, so they signed the closing document, they just didn't read it through because
Well, they can't get past it because if they sign the loan, it says it's the high-risk flood zone and they didn't purchase flood insurance, the loan process
Right.
stops. Right, so.
And if when they purchase insurance, they have to get insurance, homeowners insurance, to get a loan, and they have to do flood. And if you're in a flood zone, trust me, the amount of the flood insurance, they're going to be aware of it. And if they're not aware of it, then you might want to sit down and have a serious conversation with them because they're not paying attention to anything, and it is your fiduciary responsibility then to sit down and go, okay, wait, hang on a second, you're not. Now, if they pay cash and they buy it in a high risk zone, they don't have to have flood
And
insurance.
it's a difference in how much they pay in insurance. And
Yeah,
they
so-
are gonna be interested in how much money they're spending.
Right. I'm saying this because I hear some people, no, I didn't know I was in a high flood zone, but maybe they pay cash.
Well, or maybe.
Well, and they could have owned the home forever and the flood maps changed, right? But
It's
if
many
they-
different scenarios.
Yeah, so, okay, real quick, we talked about, when if the elevation certificates expired, they don't really expire. But again, I always ask for a newer one if I see something goofy on an older one, but they don't expire. 2007 and older is cheaper, okay? Now, how do you read an elevation certificate? And by the way, before I jump in that, we talked about floodplains and disclosing and blah, 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 all this other stuff. There is a way to tell if a house is flooded. But the seller, the owner of a property has to ask FEMA to provide them a claims list, right? If you're buying a home, if you want a claims list on the home, if it's ever flooded, the only person that can provide that to you is the owner of the property. But if you have flood insurance, every year at the renewal, FEMA sends you a claims report. And you just want to ask the seller of the home for that claims report for the FEMA flood insurance report. If they don't have flood insurance, you can fax FEMA and they'll send it to you in 2 or 3 days. And that's only the owner of the property, okay? So now, I have 3.5 minutes to teach you guys about elevation certificates, and I intend to do that. Okay, so the other handout that I gave you, there's 2 elevation certificates, and I wanted you to pull out the elevation certificate for 4123 Tartan Lane. Okay?
The smaller one.
The buyer's insurance agent can't determine if it's flooded before?
The insurance agent cannot determine, the only person that can determine if it's flooded before is the seller of the home. I'm sorry, the owner of the property. I can give you, if the home has ever had any homeowner's insurance claims on it, but remember, flood insurance is not a homeowner's insurance claim, it's a FEMA claim. And so there's no database that's readily available, you have to query FEMA for that, and they will only allow the building owner to do so. Okay, so 4123 Martin, how do we read this elevation certificate? So what I want you guys to do.
Do we have that?
Yeah.
And
that should be, that's the different thing. So that's not up there. So it's okay. I can walk through this. So there are 2 things I want you to look at initially. If you go down in the middle and look for A7, it's on the upper left, A7. The building diagram drives the first piece of information on this elevation certificate. The building diagram number, what does it say? What building diagram number is that?
1A.
1A. Without having to look at this fancy little color thing, I'm going to tell you a building diagram 1 is a slab foundation. So when you have a simple elevation certificate that is a slab foundation, all you have to do next is go figure out what the base flood elevation is. Okay? So then the base flood elevation is in cell B9, which is over here. Okay? Anybody tell me what the elevation the base flood elevation, point in which it should be rainwater drains. 51.0. Okay, so then if it's a slab foundation, you want to subtract the base elevation from the top of the first floor. So the next thing you want to look at is the top of the first floor, which is C2A, top of the bottom floor. What's the top of the bottom floor?
48.
Okay, 48.4 minus 51. Do we have a negative or a positive number?
Negative.
It's a negative number, right? So is this a good foundation or a good elevation?
No.
No.
It's not. Guess how many times this house has flooded in the last 3 years? Three times. Guess where the water line was the last 3 years? Roughly 3 feet. Every single, and this one it was even higher, but Memorial Day and tax day flood. And by the way, if I told you whose house this was and who, you would freak out. And if I told you that I told this person not to buy this home, and they just said it's never gonna flood, I'm like, it's telling me it's gonna flood. It flooded, but I'm not telling you. I'm not telling you.
You know, we could pull up the.
Oh, I know.
Right. It's already sold. Yeah. Okay, so I have an interesting situation here. So the same time this house was closing and we were telling them not to buy, we were insuring the house across the street. Okay, so the house across the street, which is the other elevation certificate I wanted to show you. So what does A7 tell you about this elevation certificate? It's an 8. Okay, without looking at this colorful handy dandy little thing, I will tell you that a diagram 8, and by the way, the building diagram tells you what type of foundation the home has. Okay, so diagram 1 is a slab foundation. That's the majority of the homes in Houston. The majority of the homes in the Heights are diagram 8, and that is all that is a house that's built on a crawl space. Okay, so when a house is built on a crawl space, generally speaking, that's good, because say this stack of magazines is your crawl space, and the first floor of your house is here, so you're already dealing with several feet before you get into the first floor of your home, right? So that's an awesome thing, but what if the first part of this foundation was actually way below the base flood elevation? Well, that's fine as long as the crawl space is built a foot above the base flood elevation, but FEMA wants to see that there's adequate venting in that crawl space, so if it does flood, water can flow through. Okay, so if there's adequate venting, and by the way, venting is communicated on these 2 squares that I made, indicated right under the building diagram. And adequate venting means that however many square footage the crawl space is above the crawl space, there has to be enough venting to equal in square inches the square footage of the home. Does that make sense? So if it's a 2,000 square foot home, this crawl space has to have enough holes in it that equal 2,000 square inches. Okay, so it's not that much venting, but if it's adequately vented, then you can go to, first of all,
Wait, where was the adequately vented?
Adequately vented is communicated in an A8.
Oh, an A8.
So in A8, you notice the square footage of the crawl space enclosure is 2415.
Right.
There's 32 holes in that crawl space, vents in the crawl space, that equal 3,360 square inches. Is it adequately vented?
Yes.
Yes. So if it's, and so also this actually also had an attached garage that was low, right? So the garage was low, it was at grade, but it was also adequately vented. So this house has water flowing all through it.
Beautiful.
Adequately vented, then you can go down to see the base flood elevation in B9, or is it 51.3, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then take, if it's adequately vented, then you can use the top of the next higher floor, because the top of the bottom floor is the bottom of the crawl space, the top of the next higher floor is your living space. So you can take that C2B number, which is, what is C2B?
52.4.
52.4 minus 51.3, do we get a positive or negative number?
Positive.
Positive. Has that house ever flooded just from looking at the elevation certificate? No. It's never flooded. Right? So it's all, and plus it's more than 12 inches above the base flood elevation, so it's compliant also. So there's nothing wrong with this home There's everything wrong with the other home.
So the people at 4123 go hang out with the people at 4126 whenever
Yes,
it rains.
that's what happened.
Okay.
And it's very interesting to be able to walk over to the new home and see the first floor that was a foot above the base flood elevation, then turn around and look at the other house to figure out, okay, this is the base flood elevation on that home. That's where the water line was, and guess what, or would be, guess where it was Memorial Day and Tax Day, right there. Right? A little higher this time because it rained a lot more. So now, again, there's a lot of information on these two sheets, but it really is one calculation. It's the top of the bottom floor or the top of the first floor, depending on the ventilation below, minus the base flood elevation. Now, that's how these things work. One calculation with a lot of information that gives you that calculation.
What's an engineered flood opening?
Great question. So a lot of these homes that have flood vents in them, it'll show you, well, first of all, the short answer to your question is an engineered flood opening is a space that looks like this space, but it's engineered to be much bigger than the square inches here. I have no idea how they do it, but they force water through at a much larger volume than just an open space.
Some sort of pump?
Yeah, it's not a pump. It's just some sort of way that they get engineered, that they get water through there much faster. And so you'll see a lot of times that these elevation certificates where instead of 30.
Where is that?
It's 8AD. 8AD.
So if it says yes, so a lot of times what you'll see is the total net opening is 2,000 square inches versus 2415. It'll look out of compliant, but they'll check the box engineered flood openings. Then on the back of this elevation certificate, it'll give you the model number of the engineered flood opening that they bought to stick in there.
Mm.
And it'll tell you the CFM, the flow in the equivalent square inches of the opening to make it compliant. So a lot of these houses, they don't really want a big opening, so they buy a small opening, but it's engineered to be much bigger than that looks.
There's no pump involved?
There's no pump involved. It's very strange. I can't figure it out yet. I'm just an insurance agent. I wish I was an engineer. Weren't you an engineer in your past life?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's why I don't understand.
Yeah, really. That's why she's fascinated by it.
I'm fascinated by it too. It's got loopers. It's got all kinds of weird things in it, but there's not a pump.
Does it have to do with how the water flows through the whole structure?
It's some weird thing. You can look it up.
Cynthia wants to know where the one is, so she can go. She can go explore it.
So I owe you 6 minutes because we're past time, but that's basically the foundations and the fundamentals of an elevation certificate. Now, if you have something besides a diagram 1 or diagram 8, just send me the elevation certificate and let me interpret it for you. But this is just real high level stuff for you guys to kind of figure out. If you're in the business long enough, you'll see these and you'll want to know what the calculations are. In touch with me, just, you know, you can use it, and I think I did a pretty decent job of explaining it in the last bullet there.
Do our houses need an elevation?
Most of them do not, because it's, you go up to 26. Yeah.
Shady Acres.
You go down here to White Oak, south of 6. There's certain pockets of that are high risk and they're elevated. Now, there is a really strange part of the Heights that just started being built 2006 to 2007, right? And that strange part is, I think, is 26th Street west of Yale, where there's a bunch of diagram 8s that are lower than base flood elevation because they were before the flood map. So, I mean, those houses are beautiful and they look like they're built right, but when you get the elevation certificate, they're not compliant. And so you just got to be real careful in that area that's up there, and it's understandable why, because they were building and all the flood maps are changing, then the flood map changed, and like, oh my gosh, you know. So just be careful.
Is that the Sandcastle homes or the Davis?
You know, there was a bunch of different builders that were building in that area at the time. And so I don't remember which homes, I don't think they were Sandcastle. So, but it's up in that little pocket, just, 20, the low to mid 20s, streets and just west of Yale. So, all right, any other questions on flood insurance? Anything? Thank you guys for everything. To get in touch with me, if y'all need anything, my contact information is in the upper right-hand corner of this.
We'll make sure it's on the vendors list too.
Oh, good. Yeah. Throw away all your other insurance agents.
Yep.
Information and just use me.
Yep.
Oh, we love it. All right. So thank you so much for your time. Hopefully I didn't, next time I see you, I'll save 6 minutes of your time. All right. Y'all have a great day.
Thanks, Leash.
I have a couple of announcements. Sorry, just real quick, real easy. You're gonna like it. I promise. If you don't, well, okay. So, here we go. Just want to kind of update you guys. Want to update you guys on what you did during Harvey. All right. First of all, before we do that, I want to recognize 2 new agents. We haven't officially recognized David Diamond, so David's over here joined us. David has experience in remodeling and building houses, especially in the Brooksmith area. He also may or may not be a resident of Brooksmith. If any of you guys can bring him a buyer, because his personal house is up for sale. So keep that in mind. He's got a great resource for that. And then we also, our newest agent is Wendy Rosenfeld. Wendy joined us from Caldwell Banker, David Young's team. So she has some team experience. If you ever want to, have an interest in that. She resides in Bel Air and has done some business in Westbury and other areas over there. She has some great new listings coming on, transference over, and then a really exciting new one coming up on the market. So feel free to reach out to her. Okay, so I want to talk about what you guys did during the hurricane. So we've had over, that I've counted up, that I've heard, over 13 agents we know of have helped find temporary or longer-term homes. So your fellow, if you sitting here in the room today, none of you guys were daunted by the task of finding temporary housing for humans or people that may have had 4 cats, 4 dogs, or whatever else. None of you were fazed by the fact that you had to do it anytime within 1 or 2 or 3 days. 8-Star, among other agents, jumped in there right away and started Facebook groups that help people whether they needed to express a need or find some housing. So I'm proud of you for that. You've also identified investors, angels who want to give tens of thousands of dollars to go out and help families. So I commend you for all of that. I've heard numerous of you making calls, reaching out to your clients, your friends, your sphere of influence. Many of you didn't know the answers to the questions that you were going to be asked, but you didn't hesitate to pick up the phone and go make those calls. And I also believe that you had the confidence that if you were asked any question you didn't know the answer to, you knew you could get the answer to that. So I applaud you for that. Many of you still were able to figure out the way to make closings happen or get them extended, and some of you have actually already gotten houses under contract. So I applaud you for all of that. And I also thank you, Bill thanks you, and we thank you, recognizing that we've done a lot over there at that hub, but somehow or another, whether it's the staff here, Bill's team, or anything else, we've been available to help you guys and let you know that you can reach out to us, and that continues. If you can't see us, it doesn't mean we're not here. We're still on the phone, we're still available via text, via email, whatever else that it needs. So I applaud, and we applaud each and every single one of you, all that you've done in this. Thank you. Oh. Mm-hmm. Let's see.
They can get it on both. So a lot of people are
My hair's cut.